Are you remembering your reflection at night before your meditation? Are you remembering your last thought? I meant to say, are you remembering your first thought in the morning? Maybe it would be an idea to remember your last thought, but if you're meditating just before sleeping, then you will be trying to incline away from thought and don't want to be encouraging yourself to be thinking about thinking. But on awakening in the morning, I mentioned the other day at some length how we can bring our attention to that first thought. Reflection at the end of the day, before you meditate, is likewise equally important. And these two things should be part of your routine, like cleaning your teeth. If we make these things part of our routine, like cleaning our teeth, not only do we have healthy teeth, we develop a healthy mind, or wholesome mind state. And this is what we are practicing this Buddhist path towards enlightenment for. To have a healthy state of mind, free from anxiety, free from worry about the past or concerns about the future, free from fear, ultimately free from desire of the nature of craving, this insatiable kind of desire, that like we have whenever we reach really for our phone to check the latest update of this or that, whatever you're using them for these days. Most often you probably find that automatically you reach for that device on a regular basis, and if you just stop yourself once or twice and say, do I need to check that right now? The answer will probably be no, not really. And put it down. Make those opportunities times for a break. Times to stop, observe, watch the mind, bring your awareness into the body. Observe the breath. But routine. I know for myself, I think in lay life, certainly as a young person, growing up, and even in adult life, I was probably a little wary of routine, a little anti-establishment, a little troubled by too many rules and regulations and what we used to call bureaucracy and red tape in business and all kinds of organizations there to help us, protect us, but seemingly always hindering us. I was probably quite anti a lot of what became known as political correctness, in terms of having to be quite careful about what you said. I don't mean careful about what you say as in right speech, like in the Noble Eightfold Path, the third point, right speech, very important, not to use harmful speech, false speech, to be conscious, to be aware of what you're saying and to whom you are saying it is very important. But certain things would change seemingly overnight about what you could say, how you had to say it, the words you would use, and you could often fall behind and find yourself technically, let's say, saying the wrong thing without any malicious intention. And I think you know what I'm saying. You're probably the same if you're watching these videos or any videos on YouTube which are to some extent talking about alternate lifestyles, then you're probably shying away a little from regular, routine and ordinary, what is considered ordinary, because nothing is really ordinary or normal, but perhaps you're already beginning a little to try and swim against the stream, or even step out of what is known as this rat race. The rat race really being just a name for samsara. Another description I've heard, which is very good, is the hamster wheel, of this little hamster running around in a hamster wheel and getting nowhere, however fast it goes. So yes, probably like you, and you probably like me, more rules, more regulations, a routine was the last thing I considered when I was first embarking on this, I don't like to say journey, but in the end it did involve a journey, but it doesn't have to. Journey implies going somewhere, and I'm not going anywhere. I have arrived somewhere far from where I began, but I'm still here as I was there. Haven't gone anywhere. Just what is surrounding me has changed to suit the circumstances required for what I'm doing now and this practice. But I wasn't looking for or seeking more routine and rules. And when one first encounters this monastic life, even if you go to stay in a monastery, you could think, wow, this is like a very strict boarding school, or a organization, or like a prison even, with its timings and its routines and its regularity of all that has to be done each and every day. And it can be quite off-putting. But it has a purpose. If you have certain things which we all have as part of our routine, you'll see they no longer need to be thought about. So back to our healthy mouth, our healthy teeth, and cleaning our teeth, we all do that each and every day, in the morning, in the night time. It is, whatever we call it, a routine. We're going to do that each and every day, and probably don't have to think about it, because it becomes automatic. It becomes routine. If we can build in certain other tools to develop our state of mind around such routines, then we are going in the right direction to help ourselves establish a pattern in our lives that will only benefit us. Of course, we've talked about the benefits of meditation And previously I've talked about the 5 hindrances, those that occur when we sit to meditate, and also those 5 hindrances, how they are applicable in everyday life. But very often the problem is just having that little bit of a push, that little bit of discipline to actually sit and meditate and do it. To just do it. Even though it isn't a doing thing. You are not doing anything. You are required to just sit and do nothing, no thing, nothing. This is important to remember, because it's easier to persuade yourself not to do something than it is to persuade yourself to do something. Unless it is part of a craving, so something you think you need, which you don't, you just want, you desire, because of the insatiable nature of its content, being a content, whether it's things you see, hear, smell, taste or touch, or things that affect your mind state, that increases the level of dopamine, a natural but very addictive drug in our bodies, in our brains, that once produced gives us a feeling of well-being, but a very quick fix, but short-lived effect. An effect that as it drifts off, you quickly want more. And that is the nature of addiction. It's what keeps us pushing the button. And then pushing, when I say pushing the button, it could be your device, your phone. In the olden days it was just a simple TV. Or before that even, people would be flicking through magazines and then couldn't wait to get to the end one, the next one rather. It's not a new thing. This is part of our evolution, part of our survival, our human nature, why we have grown as a race, survived, and are now at the stage of development that we are. We use this energy, but we redirect this energy by little tweaks here, little tweaks there, by just adjusting your understanding. And the best way to do that is to break the automatic, reactive action by a stop. Not for analytical purposes, not to think more, but to just stop. And there is nothing wrong with whatever you're doing, occasionally just stopping. And even if you don't ask yourself, why am I doing this? Do I need to do that? Even if you just stop, it is enough for those energies to redirect themselves in a more wholesome direction. So try that. Now, if you've been reflecting before your meditation, you will be reflecting on the day you've had, how you've kept sila with the precepts, or not. If you've just kept one of the precepts, congratulating yourself on that, and making a determination to try and keep more of the precepts tomorrow. Did you find time to meditate? And have you been developing your mind skillfully by perhaps avoiding unskillful interactions, unskillful forms of distraction, in terms of entertainment. There's nothing wrong with entertainment, but the types of entertainment can produce very different effects, which I don't need to explain. And you don't have to get full marks every day in your reflection. Just know. It is just this knowing that we are aiming for. Before we know, we cannot let go of what it is that we need to let go of to become content, which will result in happiness. And how do we know? Through this regular reflection, through meditation, and this in itself will develop wisdom. And then in the morning, when one wakes and asks, what was my first thought? If it was positive, knowing that. If it was negative, knowing that. If it was neutral, knowing that. If it was a negative thought, maybe replacing it with something positive. That isn't necessary. You can just understand it. No, this is how you were thinking when you woke up. Just this very knowing, bringing your awareness to something, will have an effect of, again, switching that energy into a more positive direction in the future. It's a gradual training, but it isn't doing much. A few minutes meditation at the end of the day and a few minutes meditation at the beginning of the day is all I'm suggesting to begin with. If you can make it 20 minutes at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day, that's wonderful. And if you haven't got time, take that 40 minutes away, steal it from your sleeping time. Sleeping, even if it takes you to get out of bed and sit and get ready for meditation, there's not much to do, just from there to there and sit like this. Half an hour, you've only stolen 1 hour's sleep. But it has such restorative qualities to both your body and mind. It is more valuable than that hour of sleep you've lost. And in time you will require less and less sleep as a result of this. Have a clearer approach to life, a clearer mind. See everything more realistically. And you will reduce any concerns, worries and anxieties you have through just this simple act of doing nothing for 20 minutes at the beginning and the end of each day. And with the added support of reflection at the end of the day and mindfulness of your first impressions, thoughts, to begin your day of mindfulness, you are working this Noble Eightfold Path. I was going to say in your favour. It's always in every individual's favour, but you are actively taking the steps of the Noble Eightfold Path and practicing. You are truly practicing Sila, Samadhi, Panya. And that's all this Buddhist practice is. Following the Noble Eightfold Path. So, about routine, about rules. In the last video I talked about rites and rituals. And today I, along with probably, I don't know, 250,000 other monks in Thailand, I think that's probably around a rough number that there might be, shaved my head and my eyebrows and washed my robes. I only have one set, so this is why I'm half dressed and no chanting. The forest monasteries, we have a very prescribed manner in which that's done and how it's done. and we're very strict that we only have one robe, one G1 it's called here, or I've even forgotten the Pali name now, I've been here for so long, upper robe rather. And one might think, well, that's a kind of a ritual, isn't it? It's a routine, that's for sure. It's also a rule. Not so much specifically the day, there's a limit to the number of days we can allow our hair to grow. And actually, in terms of washing robes in the Vinaya, the limit is, and our own selves, washing ourselves, the limit I think is more on the maximum times you can do that. But these are monastic additional bylaws that have come along in monasteries over the years, over the millennia of years. Why? To make our lives run more smoothly. Now imagine if I didn't every 15 days do this, I'd have to think about it. Like if you only cleaned your teeth every other night, or let's say on Tuesdays you cleaned your teeth in the evening, and on Wednesdays you cleaned your teeth in the morning, and so on. You'd have to think about it. You'd lose track of it, you'd forget, or you'd do it too much. You have to have a routine. The routine doesn't tie you down. The routine isn't a fetter. It's what we call a tie, like a chain or a restraint to tie to, not restraint, a tie to samsara, the fetters that we're trying to break to become free from samsara, free from the rat race, free from the hamster wheel. They don't act like that. They free you from having to think about, oh, I should be doing this because I'm going there, I've got to do this today. It's always done at the same time. So it's not only organizing your time, which is liberating in itself, because you are well organized, that is just simple basic time management. It is organizing your mind so that it doesn't have to think about it. With us, it's based on the moon. So the new moon coming up, Uposita, is sufficient for us to know it's time to do this. And when the full moon is coming up in 15 days' time, the same. I never have to think about that again, and monks haven't had to think about that for thousands of years. Is that a tie? Is that a problem? Is that something that would bother you? Oh, another rule, another routine. No, it's liberation. Right there in itself, freeing you from another aspect of samsara that otherwise would take up so much time and cause problems. And all of the other rules that we have as monks are supportive in terms of practical terms, things we do and we don't do and the way we do them to support us keeping sila. So tomorrow, when we chant our reflections on which is called the Patimokkha, which is chanting our recitation, not reflection, our recitation of the 227 monastic rules, what they are therein containing are supportive structures to monastics keeping the main rules for monks that would cause a monk to have to disrobe, which are essentially similar to your 5 precepts. I won't go into them in detail. So the precepts of no killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or taking intoxicants. I mean, the 5 main rules for a monk are, a bhikkhu, that is, are killing a human being, sexual intercourse, stealing something of value, it's actually only 4, and alluding, suggesting, or stating that you have some special powers as a result of your practice, or even you have attained to some level. These are the 4 parajika rules, the expulsion rules, disrobing rules, which means you cannot even reordain. And then also we have the other precepts of 5 precepts, 8 precepts, 10 precepts, all included within the 227. But it isn't a lot when you realize it's all a case of community harmony, harmony with then the community or the order of monastics in alignment with the lay community, lay people, lay men and lay women, and society, how we fit in even with the laws of the land and the country we live in. You'll find that within the monastic rules, all 227 of them, you can go to many countries in the world where laws can be very, very different. Cultures can be very, very different. But you can still fit in without breaking those laws. Even the 5 precepts will help you. If you're keeping the 5 precepts, there are very few laws in any country that aren't based on those. Even speeding in a car, for instance, you may say, well, the speed limit's too low for this nice piece of road, but it's brought about, it's through experience of the people whom are running the roads, or experienced in what's been happening on those roads, to avoid accidents, to avoid harm. And this is, of course, what the precepts are there for. So we have speed limits to avoid harming others, and including ourselves. We have precepts to avoid harming others and avoid harming ourselves. And tomorrow is a day for lay people and monastics to remember this sila, which is the part of this practice. And people coming to stay in the monastery, wherever you are, if you have a monastery, would often take 8 precepts on this day, just to reinforce and to establish in your minds the importance of this sila to the rest of your practice. So routine is not something to be shy of, as long as it's beneficial. Of course, we could have routines that are unnecessary, or we consider them unnecessary. We can probably find in our own lives things we do out of routine that we do not need to do. We may stop at a certain coffee shop every day on our way to work. We may collect a certain newspaper each day, or have one delivered each day, and some days not even read it or look at it. If indeed people have newspapers these days, I suppose not. It's all available on phones and devices. We probably go to those pages though and look every day to see the updates. Little has probably changed. I haven't looked at such things for, such a long time. I don't even know now. And I certainly don't know what's going on in the world, apart from the really big things. And even those, I'm not sure if they're still going on or not. It doesn't really mean that I don't care, because of course I care, but I care as much for anyone suffering, perhaps, I don't know, down in the town there, as in a major city somewhere else, thousands of miles across the world. We have equal care and compassion for all beings. And there's very little I can do about what is usual, what has continued throughout history of humankind and all beings, and that is suffering. And sometimes suffering is more evident. It's not just a mental thing. Sometimes we have wars, we have famines, we have plagues. These are all highlighted in the oldest religious texts. So they're not a new thing. And one can often say that, yeah, some of these wars and things have been caused as a result of religion. And that's a whole nother topic for discussion. But the real cause, always, whether it's attributed to religion, but the underlying problem with that religion that causes it to be a cause for war, will always come back to these root causes for suffering. And they are greed, hatred, and delusion. They don't need explaining. You can put any major problem going on in the world down to greed, hatred, or delusion. Sometimes when something comes along like a, what do we call it, a disease, a pandemic thing like we've just had, it's hard to see how greed or hatred or delusion comes into that. But what comes into that is the delusion part, yes? Because delusion means ignorance, misunderstanding. And it is our view of this pandemic, or I don't know if it's still around, that pandemic. It is the view of this thing, our perspective, our understanding of it, that makes it what it is. Because after all, these have been going on also throughout history, forever, for all beings. Beings have died out through disease or disaster. Plagues have come and gone over the centuries, over the millennia, and killed hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people. And it's part of nature, it's part of life. But delusion makes us think it shouldn't be this way. This is a disaster. It should not be this way. Well, no, it should be this way. It is the way it has always been. So that's how greed, hatred, and delusion even comes in to something that seems completely out of our control. It's not that knowing it comes from delusion makes it within our control, but knowing it is part of the characteristics of existence, that is, that everything is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and out of our control, knowing that brings it into focus. Therefore, dispelling delusion, dispelling ignorance. This is meant to be, it is what it is. It is part of our existence. To have illness as we age and to die. And occasionally viruses will come along, plagues, pandemics. And as a result of greed, countries will try and take over other countries. We'll have wars and hatred. So all we can do is know. And by knowing, and knowing our own reactions, our aversions to what we don't like, and knowing how we feel and our reactions and what we do about what we do like, we're able to step back, observe, and stop and see clearly what it is we're doing next. When we're going to the fridge, are we going to the fridge because we're thirsty, because we're hungry, or are we going to the fridge to distract ourselves? It's okay, you can still go to the fridge and you can still distract yourself if you want to, if it's nice, if it's doing no harm. Or you may redirect that energy and say, no, I'll stop, I'll sit, I'll go later. Just stopping throughout your day goes a long way towards building contentment without actually doing anything at all. However busy you are, whatever you're doing, you'll waste no time if you just stop for a few seconds. Your body will settle and relax, your mind will settle and become calm. You will begin to let the dust in the water settle and become clear and see clearly in just a few seconds, a few times throughout the day. And by what you gain in clarity and effectiveness after, you will make up that few seconds time and time again. You will make time. Soon you will be so effective you will have less and less to do, and more time to sit and enjoy, to sit and accept contentment, and sit and accept happiness. And after all, that is what we're trying to be, happy. So accept routines and use them, enjoy them for their supportive nature to your goal or aspiration to be content. So I think tomorrow I have to go on a little trip, not far, to the local big town, city, for another appointment at the immigration office. No problems, it's all fine. We're just getting some things still sorted out. But I'll just relax, go for a little journey in the car. A lay person is coming to pick me up and take me there. In fact, I don't have to do anything, I just go, and they'll do the speaking, and I suppose I have to be present, but it's all done for me, so it's a little trip out. I doubt I'll have an opportunity to make or record any video tomorrow, but I'm sure I'll talk to you again very soon. So on that note, remember, as part of your routine, your reflection tonight, remember tomorrow to remember that first thought, be aware of that first thought, and enjoy these short bits of meditation before you go to work or before you begin your day, and before you go to sleep at the end of your day. Because as they become part of your routine, you'll fall into it automatically without having to think, oh, I should be meditating, I must meditate today, or I must. If it's routine, you don't have to think about it. It will just happen.